Hello. Hey everybody, welcome to a very first episode of what we're calling EU. Now this is a trick term because we're trying to figure out a name, and he went, why don't we just call it Calling Europe? And I was like, can you do that? He went, yeah, call them up. There you go. So that is our
Nothing else that term could be confused with. No other callings.
No, and we're not
in Fashion
piggybacking.
Blood.
We're not piggybacking off. If you typed "calling Europe," we may show up. Anyway,
Wouldn't know what you're talking about.
no, I don't know. So what we're doing on this is that we're going to get some brilliant players from the Flesh and Blood scene who have performed very well at tournaments or just doing like some big amazing stuff in the Fab scene to get two guests on, and we're going to bring out topics, right? So each guest is going to have a topic each, and we're going to have a community topic to talk about, and we're just going to have a chinwag around these topics. If you don't know what chinwag is, look it up. There you go. Bartosz also learned something today. So Jacob, topic number one you've brought along is record-based prizing. Break it down for me.
So at the moment in Flesh and Blood, the prizing you get outside of top 8, there's like cash prizing for most tournaments. Sometimes there's also like PTIs, the big ones, and it's based off your like final placement as a record. This is I don't know if I'm over explaining this,
Right?
but this is like pretty typical, but it has find a problem, which is that like tiebreak, like if you have the same record as someone, in my mind, you did as well as them, and like when you took the losses is a good tiebreaker, but it's still a bit like whatever. And so I'd like it if instead of being like, at a cooling, like top 16 gets $500, top 32 gets $400, top
64.
64.
Yeah, 64 is usually
Yes.
the biggest cutoff.
Instead of like that structure, if it was like, all right, if you say it's a 12-round cooling, it's like if you have 9 wins, it's like X and 3, you get the $500. And then if you have 8 wins, it's like X and 4, then you get the like
so
band
basically
down.
for every win, rather than your placement, because it I know what you mean. It is that 65th player who is also 9 or 8 and 4.
Yeah.
He gets nothing. The guy who's also got the same record gets £1,000. It's like, wow. It feels rough, and to cut off the rough edge, it's basically I got 8 wins.
Yeah.
Everyone that got 8 wins gets this prizing, if that makes sense. But how do you get a top 8 when those records are the same?
We could just keep it at top 8, which would be maybe a bit simpler. But my really radical phrase is that instead of saying top 8, you're like final cut, you'd say, because the way it's meant to work at coolings is that if you have 2 losses or like X2, you make top cut. But sometimes we have it where people bubble out at X2, and it's because you have these people because we design the number of rounds, or LSS has designed the number of rounds, so it's meant to be a cut at X2. But sometimes you have people who have like already locked and then are getting paired down and then lose. That makes there too many people end up at X2, and then you have people bubble out at X2. Like it happened at Leon, with Michael Lemerly. It happened to like George at Birmingham, George Roger. It's like it happens at like about half the coolings. And so instead of running all the Swiss rounds, if you say at the start that we're going to have everyone, say it's a 12 round, everyone who gets to 10 wins, once you get to 10 wins, you stop playing. So, and like I've put up Cooling Leon as an example, because going into the final round, we had 3 people with 10 wins who in my model just wouldn't play. And then what happened was we had 10 people with 9 wins. And instead of just them all playing each other and then 5 of them winning and then 8 people being at X2, not to put you on blast, Bart, but you got paired up and then someone else got paired down and then you won and the person who got paired down won. And then we had too many people at X2. Someone didn't make it on the record they're meant to. And I just think this is a really, it's not a really big problem, because it only happens to one person like every 4 months, but it's fucking brutal that it happens.
It's interesting. Bartosz, what's your thoughts on hearing this?
Well, for sure, I know that Ian Zhang had it happen to him twice
Yeah.
at least, if not more.
Yeah.
It happened to me once during one of the Battle Hardens early on in Antwerp, that I was ninth,
Yeah.
and I had the same score. I basically lost in the wrong round.
Yeah.
It's something that should be addressed. Your solution is really interesting. I like the idea because basically now, every time there's the last round, basically 6 or 7 of people are already locked in, and and it's impossible for them to move down or up. Maybe up to have the better in the top 8, but it's meaning it doesn't change the stuff for the other players that are fighting for the chance at top 8. So in such a case, it really often happens that someone, as you said, one person per event is probably feeling really bad because he was 9th or he was 10th, anything not in top 8. So
with the same number of
wins.
Yeah, I've got, so in principle, I think it's quite fair, right? But the last bit you said, where if you've got so many wins and then you don't play, that bit was weird to me, because I think that challenges the ethos of the game, which is to play.
Yeah, so I understand that, but my worry is that these people who get to the wins and then at the moment keep playing, they are playing in a position where they're completely locked for top 8, sometimes completely locked for first seed. Like, the game doesn't change anything for them. And they're playing someone who the game is like they're winning in. And we know LSS wants everyone to play the games, but what can also sometimes happen here is it starts to create, like, we've seen a lot of policy recently trying to crack down on concessions, trying to crack down on like game determining prize splits. And I think these situations you create, where you have someone playing a win-in for top 8 against someone who isn't playing a win-in for top 8, are terrible, because they create the incentives for these things that are against the rules and are bad as well. Like, rules aside, it's just bad if someone gets scooped into top 8 in exchange for a backroom deal, in addition to being against the rules. And so I think it would really clean it up. And then with seeding, the earlier you locked in and stopped playing, the higher seed you are. So it doesn't affect.
But
seeding.
This is, tournaments like this have been going around, and I'm not saying it's because it's just sometimes people do this because it's the model they know, and I'm why has this not been done? It's been tournaments in every sorts of games in the history of whatever. Do you think they've done it and it just doesn't work?
So the problem with this, to be my own devil's advocate, is that it means you don't always get 8 people in the final cuts. So it would make us better at getting 8 people at the right record. But sometimes just with the number of people, you'd end up with like more or less than 8 people at the record. And then you have to handle that. And that can be a little bit tricky. But I think it's still ultimately fine. If you end up with more than 8 people, you run it as like a top 16 bracket, but most of the people get a bye. So like the bottom 2 people. So if you had 9 people at X2, so like at Leon, say it didn't get sorted with this, like stopping people playing, which I think it usually would. But in the case where you have like 9 people X2, the bottom 2 people on breakers basically play like a play into top 8. And it's like unfortunate for the 2 of them that they have to play a game, but better than one of them not getting to top 8 at all, and then one of them being in my opinion. And then in cases where you have like 7 people, just the first seed gets rewarded with a bye in top 8, which again, a little weird, but I just think it's like so bad when people bubble out. I just think that even these weirdnesses. But the reason, so I've actually heard about a game that did do this.
Right.
That someone told me about a game that did this. That's ages ago, actually, at like Worlds in Barcelona.
Right.
Someone mentioned this to me as a system, and I was like, that was really interesting. I like put it away in the back of my mind.
For today.
For today, it's coming back out. Whoever told me it, don't remember you, but shout out. It was a great idea. Or a great system that your game had. But that is the weirdness, so to speak, is that you lose that like really iconic, like this is the top 8 bracket, this is the like quarterfinals, the semifinals, the finals, and like it maybe loses, especially for tier 4s, it maybe loses some of the cinematicness of the Sunday if like someone has a bye
and
in top 8.
It's a weird thing, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
a lot of this is also, when it comes to tournaments, it comes in two fronts. It's you guys on the battlefield doing the event, and then there's us as the spectators watching the event. And and the way the system works is that this top 8 thing, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of this, and there's a lot of that. And you guys, as the people on the battlefield, are taking these huge hits and losses and that cut, and all that. Us as the spectators, though, are loving it. Right, we're lapping this all up. It's part of the drama. It's part of the scene. And I wonder if that is like as rough as it is, because this seems very much like a topic for what you guys in the field are seeing. But as us as spectators, it certainly serves us well the way it works right now to get that cinematic top 8. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
I love it. But it's
sorry,
also,
I'll let Bart.
No, go on, Bartosz.
Yeah, there's what you're saying is true, because there's so much appeal to see if someone makes it, if someone doesn't make it. So probably Jacob's idea is great, but what I would see and what I saw in other games is maybe just making the top cut not 8 people but top 16 or top 32 even, and as Jacob said, maybe give out some buys, maybe make it top 24 if the numbers will be right in that configuration, and give top 8 of the Swiss bracket a buy, make top from 9th to 24th place, play it out for the top 16, then pair people up, and then proceed with the top 8. But it's a lot of work and a lot of games. Probably the easiest solution, but that could not work that often, is to just make people play more rounds. But then from the organizer's point of view, it could be hard, because what if there's less people than you expected or more people than you expected?
Yeah.
Or as Jacob said, there could be some pair ups and pair downs because of the stuff happening, people drawing the games or not showing up. There's so much things that could happen that would disturb the calcs, that it could not be feasible. So I like the topic. I think people should talk about it more, because it really is a bummer whenever someone is 9th and doesn't make it, and it was their place to show off for the first time maybe in their career. And yeah, it's a bummer, and maybe they will not make it again. They should, but it's really often I knew some people that their drive for the game kind of smushed out because they were 9th and they didn't make it, so they didn't feel like trying again.
It's an interesting thing, because I feel so just to sort of wrap it up, I guess, on my end, I think that record-based pricing works tremendously well for everyone that isn't in the top 8, right? It's those top 64s, top 32s, That feels a lot more cleaner, a lot more like, okay, well, if you got your 8 wins, there's your pricing for 8 wins, and you go, cool. That just works really, really well. It is just a bit funky for that top 8 bit, and I suppose really. Maybe you could have that best of both worlds, of where you have that ranking system and it only matters for top 8. That's it. Like, you just go, the 9th, blah. But it's still amazing. And a lot of people still get a lot of light shone on 9th place, because you're the last person at the door. Unfortunately, 10th and 11th really is just pure shadow. No, that's like, I am also super close, and you're like, yeah, but not 9th, mate. And you're like, that feels to me, I think 10th is worse than 9th, because so many people talk about 9th. They talk more about 9th than the top 8, let's be honest. So many people talk about that, but 10th, who?
Double digits. Get out of here.
Who is 10th? Do you know anyone that's 10th? Sadly not. But yeah, the rest of it feels a little bit fair. I think there's a world that actually that could be quite interesting for kind of that both ends sort of thing. because you also got to think about time as well, like the
Yeah.
structural organization of the time. They have the venue for X amount of time. There's a lot of I think that maybe there's a conversation around top 8 for tier 4 events, especially with the coverage being all the games out of the top 8, which is really, really exciting, but they do not last that long in comparison, if that makes sense. So could there be a debate for, you know, more people than just the top 8? So we can actually, because the calling is also running at the same time, which is a day 2 plus top 8. So it's not as if their venue time is like shorter. It's still got to run a day 2 calling alongside it, plus a battle harden. You know,
I mean, we've heard stories about these battle hardens at tier 4s going past the point they need them to end, right?
yeah, 100. They always do. So it's not exactly. But I get it. Maybe the casters are sitting there going, "No,
Yeah.
no." Day 3, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done, bro. But yeah, no.
I think it's
interesting.
a good sum up though. Past top 8, I think this is a very solid case.
Yes.
For the top cut, it's a bit iffy, but my friend Mannheim said this to me once, where he said, if you come 9th, but you were like hoping for a bubble in, it's heartbreaking because you're 9th, but it's like whatever. I was hoping for something nice and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
When you come 9th because you were on the record you meant to get in, it's like it's actually on another level because it's like I should like.
Yeah.
The deal was that.
Yeah.
The deal was that I would get it if I went X2, and now you're reneging on the deal.
Yeah, no, I know. It feels rough, but at the same time, in terms of a lot of people who, you know, a lot of people that come 9th. There's a story to that, right? We talk immediately. Ian Zhang comes up into mind, and it's the stories that get told about it. So it doesn't actually. I know that there's like that competitive element to it, but there's also a story that attaches to it. Like Alan Lau, the guy that almost got in so many times, and when it does, we all scream, "Hooray, hooray!" You know, and it's and people who are very good get almost in every time. Both of you are testaments of that. Do you know what I mean? You're not just having a run. Like that's me. I had a run once at that one event, a good run. But the good players do consistently, always almost, if not consistently get there. And that is the difference between the best pro players and a dude that had a good run. Do you know what I mean? So so the good players still get in. That's my sort of argument. The good players do always.
Fab's very good. That's the other thing I guess is Fab's very good for this. Like this isn't a criticism coming from thinking they're doing a bad job.
No, it's just think different. Let's just think about something a little bit different. I love it. Right, let's move on to topic number 2 from Bartosz. This is. The title might be a little bit weird, but Bartosz will hopefully bring us down a bit more. Should Playstyles affect deck building? Which I know that I've just made the title a little bit wonky, everyone. So, break it down, Bartosz. Should Playstyles affect deck building? That's the title.
So,
what do you mean?
what I mean, from my perspective, during the deck building process, probably people know me from playing aggro decks.
Because they're the ones who did, the ones who did really well at.
Heroic Briar,
Zen
from Amsterdam, and now Aurora from Calling Leon and from World Championship. So I'm converting and doing well with aggro decks. So I believe people who know me from that. And what I don't find in other people's list is that mid-rangey element in my aggro builds that I would say is not something you see often in the Fab deck building. So what I wanted to talk about is how you should build the deck in the way you think will work best, and not only focus on the decks that are in the top 8s and convert best because a good player was playing them.
Okay.
I don't know if I explained it.
No, okay. So I feel like there's 2 things there. So should player styles affect deck building? Is it basically a deck style that you prefer, a style of play that you prefer to play? You should be leaning into the style of play you enjoy playing and to see better results rather than let's just play what the best deck is, even though that style of play is just not what I'm good at. So, for example, as a Viceroy player, I love playing the way Viceroy plays. It's a bit combo, very aggressive. Oh, but Oldham's doing very well. I know I'll play Oldham and it will be really good. No, dude, that is like not in the same ballpark whatsoever. You're going to have a terrible time. I do have an analogy because I did that. I took Starvo to an event and went, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I can't just throw Spinal Crush. How do people do this?
And it happened to me at least twice for the last year's Worlds for Barcelona. I played Dash IE, the swap build. You either played aggro or just build up your board and shoot people with the pistol, and it was
miserable.
It was miserable. I went 2-2 in CC, and then because I was so mad at myself for choosing the wrong deck that didn't resonate with me at all, then the draft didn't go as well. And then I didn't even play in the calling because my deck I wasn't feeling it at all. I didn't have any replacement for that event. Basically, the whole tournament was lost for me from the beginning because I chose the deck that I didn't feel like playing at all. And even though the deck was good, one of my friends went to top 64, I believe, or top 32 with it, and there were Dash IE in the top 8. The deck choice was right for that event. It was a good choice.
It wasn't the right deck choice for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think some people might want in their path of becoming the better player to choose to play the decks that are from the top 8, the deck that won that tournament. But I think no one is talking about that. You should also consider the deck choice you make to resonate with you and to feel like you want to play that deck.
Okay.
Because what happened there was I choose the best deck that could have possibly won the tournament, but because I wasn't feeling like playing it, kinda, it went really bad for me. And,
okay. Have you ever done
for
that,
all
Jacob?
the future events.
Have you ever done that, Jacob?
Oh, not quite. I've done this before. So I was thinking, as you're saying this, I was thinking, I think this is like a really like true thought that like Fab's such a ridiculously hard game. I don't think there's anyone who's actually it reminds me of a quote about Magic Gathering where someone said there's actually like 0 to a very small number of actually good Magic players. The goal is just to be a slightly better Magic player than your opponent. And I think that applies to Fab. It's like so difficult. Like I walk away from most games I play knowing mistakes that I made, and even being like aware enough to notice your mistakes to try and improve from them. And so I think understanding what the thing that you know or do well that's like giving you an edge is like really important, and like working out what deck lets you express that. So like when I first started playing this game, I played like Oldham and Icelander, and then we had a tournament. It was like the Battle Hardened Bologna, where I think we had a read that like Fire was going to be really strong in the meta. So I played Fire and I went like 2-2 or something. I just didn't.
Dude, from knowing the game, like the decks that you play, it feels very much like, dude, I know you don't play Fire. Why are you playing? Jacob Clements does not play Fire. Like that's just not the deck that jams into your play style.
No, and I think about the people I know, and like I always think about like Pete as like the opposite of me, where I'm like I can play really quickly at like quite a high % accuracy that makes like really long game decks, so you have to play fast to play in time with like lots of decisions, where like playing at like 90% accuracy, but playing like a 25 turn game with a really interactive deck, like that's a really impressive skill. Whereas with aggro decks, like so I'd say Pete Ward's a player who I know has got a reputation, and I know personally, of like being quite slow, and he'll literally just like think about every single like possibility and then do his play. And so like when in an aggro deck, when the game's only like 4 turns, you can't say to yourself, well, I'm just going to be like 95% accurate, but play quick. It's like, no, you need to be able to like hunker down and be like 100% accurate in the shorter game. And I mean, this is just one example that I think understanding your strength and playing to it.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Because that's just how it is with Fab being so difficult to play, and especially whenever you would want to play a different deck that's entirely different playstyle, like Oldhim and Briar, for example. Or Icelander and Fi. These days are just out of their league in what they want to do and how they play the game, what cards are they playing, and what you want to do. So if you don't go with the playstyle you at least know something about, so even trying out the different things during Armory might be hard because it's just not resonating with you. And I lost my phone.
No, that's
no,
fine.
I think
go on, Jacob. Go on.
No, I think your train of thought's good. It's just this thing of like playing to your strength, like understanding yourself. I think that is so key. And what you're saying, where it's like when I said Fab's a really difficult game, that's almost an oversimplification. Fab's like 17 really difficult games.
Yes, and what I find quite interesting is that there's a play. You got to know your play style, and I'm going to base the one thing I know I can play, which is I can play Viserai. Right? There's something about the way that deck and I'm not how that deck works and how all that stuff melds together is just something to me that is my play style, right? But at the same time, you also, even though you don't know how to play Fi, right? If I took Fi, I'd suck. But for some reason, I know the opponent. I sort of do know what they got to do. I don't know how I can't do it the way they do it, even though I know what they're going to do. It's really weird that you kind of know how to combat a different play style, but not play it. It is quite a bizarre thing, if that makes sense. Like if I played a game against you, Jacob, and you're playing that way back when it was Oldhim, I know what you're going to do. I don't know how. And then if I touched your deck, I don't know how you did it, but I knew what you were going to. But I knew it is very bizarre. So as to sort of build on that when it comes to tournaments, you see players like the likes of like Michael Feng, Brody, and Yuki, right? They all seem to perform like incredibly well at different, really massive different deck styles, if that makes sense. Like you've seen Yuki doing incredibly well with Lexi, and then goes to a world tournaments to play Icelander. They're not the same deal if that makes sense, but does it take does it take time to go, right, I'm just gonna really sort of go left field here and just do something totally different, take my time to learn that play style and actually learn something better, which is I think there's that's a genuine tactic that you can do. But do you think with your Dash.io thing, Bartosz, that you actually just didn't, you could do it, but you just didn't give yourself the real time to learn that play style? Or do you think that is just not the deck style I want to play? Everyone's different. It's a complex question, actually, because
it's a really complex question.
Because it's people, isn't it?
For me, it was just that I didn't feel agency while playing Mech, and after that tournament, I figured out that for my deck, the deck for me has to have some form of agency, especially against the fatigue playstyle, something I can build upon during the game, because because Fab games are so complex. Sometimes you need to swap your play style or game plan during the game because you see that you will not be able to win with your current idea of what you wanted to do, and you need to swap in the middle. And I found out after playing Dash.ie that it's not possible with her because the deck is so rigid. Like you need to play boosts. If you want to be a good aggro deck, you can't bring in items because they will clank your hands. If you want to build up your board with the items, you can bring in aggro cards because you need to be at least somehow defensive to not die before you set up. And that's not something for me. And that's what I love about Runeblades, is that they can set up really well or just play aggressively, and they have some built-in combos that allow you to kill your opponent even if things don't go well for you and something goes wrong, like you get hit by CNC in a wrong moment and you had Arc Lightning setup or CMH for Briar setup in your arsenal, and now you wanted to kill your opponent with that, and it's not possible anymore. So you can maybe set up and swing with your Rosetta more, or just stack your deck. And it's not something I felt from mechs because the way they destroy their deck during the game plan, their game doesn't allow you for that.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? Because I imagine if you actually spoke to like a long-standing mech player like Sam Sutherland, for example, you know, he could probably turn around and go, actually, there is a way you could do, and you know, there's going to be some dudes that live in that plant, and they go, no, I live here, I live in this mech plant pot for all eternity, and I'll tell you how deep the roots go. You know, there is a world that's out there, isn't it? But for you guys going to tournaments, like you got what, and maybe this circles back to your original title question, Bartosz, is that when you're going to an event, what is it that you first lock into? Is it first, I've got to play the best deck, or hang on, do I want to find my playstyle first and then find the best deck to fit my playstyle? So I'll throw that one to you, Jacob.
Well, I think generally it's like you already know the play style that you like.
Yeah.
And then at least the way I approach it is often it's like there's a phase where you're just kind of trying to work out what the meta is. So like I think a good example for me for this is like the Amsterdam meta, where it's like we're trying and the Nats meta as well. It's like there's a phase where you're just like everyone's like playing different decks, trying to work out what's good, and you're like, all right, we're kind of seeing the like lay of the land is that like Zen's quite clearly the best deck, and then Nu is like the counter to the best deck. And then as I start looking at it for like myself, what I'm going to play, I'm like, well, I know famously or like classically from previous metas that Zen is not the type of deck I like or do well with, and Nu is the type of deck I like or do well with. And then as you're testing, you're like, oh, but Zen is like the better deck. And then you have to, and this is the personal bit, is you have to decide like how much better the best deck has to be for you to switch. Because I think there is like, there's a level where like, if it's just like so far and away the best deck.
Yeah.
And so you're like, there's two evaluations. There's like, you're trying to work out how much better it is. And that's like a question about the meta, what other people are bringing, and like if you've missed something in testing, and that's difficult. And then you like in a difficult interpersonal way have to decide like how much deck percent you're willing to give up to play something you're comfortable with, or to play something you feel like you have control in. And I've been in arguments in our testing Discord about what that percent should be. And people were saying it should be, so like some people in our Discord would be like, it should literally be 0. Like if your favorite deck, if you think it's like 0.5% worse than another deck and you don't play the deck that's 0.5% better, you're like disservicing yourself and you're giving up 0.5% you could have. But I think it's more, it's more complicated than that. But it's difficult because you want to think of yourself like as a competitor, you want to like give yourself the best chance to do well. And then you're like looking at yourself and being like, but actually, I'm not going to take the best thing. I'm going to take this thing that I'm more comfortable with. And it does feel uncomfortable sometimes realizing that choice you're making. But I've performed better when I've made that trade-off than when I haven't, because deck comfort actually does. It's admitting a fault. You're saying if I was perfect, Zen would be the better pick, but I'm not perfect, so I have to take Nu. But it's like it's difficult.
No, I think like, the thing is,
say that you're not perfect.
Every single time, everyone that has performed well has always taken the deck they just enjoyed playing anyway. Do you know what I mean? And then luckily, it's actually good. It's actually a really, really good deck.
I mean, you don't see them when it's not good, though.
No,
it's
true.
like it's more like they keep going to tournaments and playing their favorite deck, and then when their deck's well positioned, you see them. It's like a survivorship bias.
Yeah.
It's that picture of the plane with all the holes.
And all you get some dudes that are just not bothered, aren't they? Like they will just take the best that best deck, and they will just slam their, like, they're happy to, because it's a different mentality. It's not about, like, they'll find a way to enjoy it. Maybe some people will just find a way to enjoy it, and the enjoyment is I'm winning. I don't, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think it's really impressive that people like Pablo, he's like every cooling he's won on a different deck.
But he takes
people
the
like
deck
that,
he enjoys. Yeah. That is fundamentally, I know that's what he does. He doesn't take Riptide because it's tier 1, you know, to Amsterdam.
I think what he does, and it's something I started doing, is kind of forcing yourself to find something in the good deck in the format that you like about it.
Yeah.
So, for example, whenever I wasn't playing an aggro deck, I was playing Victor for calling Warsaw. It didn't end well for me. But what I thought, but even though it was a Guardian, I found that he was a really aggressive version of Guardian. So you don't block that much. You pretty often want to trade your health for the possibility of disrupting your opponent and just killing them, making their life threshold so low that you will just kill them with the Golden Sun.
Yeah.
So that's something I found in theory a defensive class, that you could possibly make it the deck so that it's much more aggressive and it suits my playstyle better. And it's what I wanted to talk about with that topic of mine, is that sometimes in the decks that are in the meta, you possibly might find something you enjoy if you build the deck in the way you would enjoy it, and if the deck is still good, that's how you should play, and that's the deck you should bring for the tournament, because it will both be the good deck, and you will have a good chance to play and win, while also being the deck you like and the strategy you would want to play.
And if you're playing the deck in a slightly off-meta way, you can also really catch people off guard.
That's also something.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. It's really that there's a lot to unpack here. Both of you bring some amazing topics. Now I'm going to move on to the final one. Now this would be the community one. And I don't know, everyone, you did see my tweets, right? You all gave it a thumbs up and you liked, but you didn't listen to that last bit where you said just chuck us a question, right? But if you do, comment below on a topic you would like to hear in the next episode, which should have Alex Kitsu and Daniel Correa. So if you want them to talk about a topic, throw it in the comments below and we'll go there. So I brought one along, right? It's not biased at all. So is Runeblade the most versatile class flavor-wise? Now, when I say that, we have got, currently, so far, we have Vincent, which is Shadow Runeblade. We've got Viscerai, which is just a normal Runeblade. The best one, obviously. But we've got Florian, which is a Earth Runeblade. We've got Aurora, which is a Lightning Runeblade. And we also had Chain, which is also a Shadow Runeblade, right? Now, if you look at all of them, there's nothing about it that makes, to me, I think Runeblades are it's such a versatile name. It's such a versatile class. You can kind of just go, okay, when you see Runeblade, or no, when you see Warrior or Ninja, yeah, the heroes just kind of a little bit just fit into that same sort of like, well, Guardian, you know, you go, yeah, Betsy, Bravo, Victor, maybe Oldham's a bit of an outlier, and soon to be Jarl. I don't know. You just kind of go, yeah. Or maybe I'm. This is a debate. Jacob's going to go, you're wrong, Hamish, and that's fine.
No.
It's fine to be wrong, Jacob. Right? but you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It's when I play all these other Runeblades, like Vincent Aurora, it just to me is just like wow. And I think it's because like it's such a stretchy name. It's such a stretchy meaning, that it actually allows LSS to really kind of just morph ideas a little bit more flexible by slapping the Runeblade title on things. I think maybe there is a bad side to the Runeblade thing. I think it also encompasses too many different class names, but it's also easier. You know, like for example, Florian would probably could come up with something a bit more interesting with a druidy sort of thing, or do you know what I mean? And wizards also have that same sort of feel to it as well, that they kind of overshadow the names of other things that we know in a D&D session, druids or I don't know why I'm keeping up with druids, but do you know what I mean? There's just other. I wouldn't be shocked if they never make a necromancer because there's somehow a Runeblade can do some necromancy looking things, and they'll just call it a Runeblade. Then you go, yeah, but this feels like a necromancer. Yeah, but
you're a wizard. I feel like the necromancer could be a wizard.
But it
as
could
well,
be a wizard, couldn't it? And it just goes necroblast. It's just deals. It's a zero. It's a zero block. It's a zero block and deals 1 arcane damage. You know, but it's called necroblast. You know, whatever. But do you know? Anyway,
27.
So I don't. That's my sort of topic. I think Runeblade's a very stretchy class name. Am I wrong, Jacob?
Well, I fully take the accusation on Guardian.
Yeah,
they're all the same.
Yeah.
No objection there. The classes that I wanted to contend you with, was a wizard and illusionist. I feel like are the obvious other two. Like we have this healing wizard, we have this ice wizard, and then we have Kano as like the pure and blaze. But I think that's almost too easy because and Acilio. All very different, but that's talents. And I think what's really interesting in your Runeblade point is that even like Chain and Vinset are very different, and that's within the same talent.
Yeah.
And like similarly, Illusionist, they're very different, but they're different talents. So it's almost a cheat. I think Brute is the most interesting class for this because we have KO and Rhinar. As for being the same talent, I would challenge you to have two heroes who share class and talent and feel more different. Rhinar is like a big, intimidating presence, whereas KO is like a kind of like ferocious, like unhinged aggressiveness. Like the like, even though they both exist in this like very close class space of like discarding cards, they feel to me so different. Like Rhinar's almost a calculatedness to his discards, where he does a random discard of like the only card in his hand to Blood Rush. KO just like ripping cards off the top with Wild Rides and Bare Fangs.
True. But I guess I'm just going to be a little bit boring here and just say Blood Rush Bellow, right? Let's.
And then Levy is like a totally different vibe.
I don't care what Ethan says. It's Blood Rush. It's Blood Rush Bellow, bro. It is Blood Rush Bellow the class. I'm being a bit. I know I'm being a bit unfair here. Oh no, I forgot about Briar, right? You know, Briar as well as Briar's also in that Runeblade camp. But none of even the cards that fit that you throw into, like I think the only thing that I've ever felt that is similar is Briar and Aurora. They are the only two heroes that I think the way I see this feels like Briar was the first iteration of doing this, right?
Yes.
And then Aurora is kind of like it is really feels like a poster child of that time.
Yep.
If that makes sense. Yep. Whereas there was when Briar wanted to then become a bit more big hit swing near the very, very end of Nats 2023, where Alex Kitsu won that with the Charles Dunn. No, he didn't win that with Charles Dunn.
He wasn't the Charles Dunn.
Charles Dunn.
Charles Dunn Briar.
Yeah, that.
I mean, that's almost Florian though.
That's almost Florian.
Like Florian right now.
Yeah, exactly. But
so Briar in her life embodied both Aurora and Florian, very fittingly for being.
Turns out that those two are pretty much the poster child of Briar. They even put Briar's weapon in this set as a special. Hey, remember her? You know, all of that. But then even all the cards from Chain to Vinset to Viscerai, they are just not the same at all. The way they feel when they're playing is so them. It's so them. It's like nothing is like them. And that's why I feel like I do generally, that's my sort of stance of why I think Runeblade, flavor-wise, just feels like such a really versatile class and why it's very popular, because they really do throw out heroes that go, this is me, this is what I do. And I know I'm not, if I actually do think about a lot of other classes and heroes, sure, they are doing their thing. I think, Jacob, I will challenge you picked the worst class, because when you say brute, it is just Blood Rush spell.
No, I stand by it.
All
Because
right.
you're talking about Flavor, which isn't
Fine.
just
No,
the cards they play.
You're right.
A Blood Rush and Rhinar, he's just going weapon. A Blood Rush and KO, you still have to like string together the attacks off it.
Okay. Bartosz, is there? Do you want to challenge me on this? I'm standing by the Runeblade is the most versatile class flavor wise. Jacob says you're wrong. He is very. I think that's fair, because it would be ridiculous to just believe that. But I'm here for discourse.
Well, what I love, my favorite card, class is Runeblades, of course. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Why do you think I invited him on? No, I'm joking.
And especially now with how they made this latest set Rosetta, and Florian is basically a Runeblade Guardian, and Aurora is basically a Runeblade Ninja, Runeblade Fi.
Yeah.
So
feels that.
Whenever you choose to play Runeblades and you want to become a Runeblade main, we could say that's the class that you will want to play, or at least start your journey with Flesh and Blood with. It's the class that gives you the most options to try different things, because whenever you grab your cards for Runeblades, you can either go with more defensive playstyle, more aggressive playstyle, more mid-rangey playstyle, and the class also for the future looks like it will have even more talents put in, because it's as Hamish said, it's so easy to put a talent into the next to the Runeblade, and it becomes an entirely different thing. Like with other classes, it might be hard to do that, as with brutes. Yeah, let's come back to brutes, because with brutes, what talent would you give them that would at least feel somehow connected with them, like
a lightning brute.
Lightning brute, light brute. Yeah, shadow brute is the only one, because it's the recklessness and the, I don't know, something strange, something not visible with the shadows, that maybe the randomness is in there. But any other talent that we got until now,
I think you could have an Earth brute.
Yeah, you could have.
Earth brute, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But there's yeah. The LSS would definitely come up with some stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, but whenever you have a class that's name is Runeblade, so you just need a stick and some kind of wizardy stuff, you can just put anything in and make it work.
They almost did it. The Emperor is the untitled Runeblade, right? He is a warrior wizard. It's definitely not a Runeblade. No, yeah.
We saw that.
Yeah. No, I think you probably, for me, captured what I was trying to get at, Bartosz, with that talent that you could just go an ice Runeblade. Yeah. Any talent you could think of, even the ones that are
Frostbite says you do it, yeah.
Yeah, but I the one class that you did throw in there that made me go, I think the biggest challenger to the Runeblade is Illusionist, like, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, you could literally just gather everything up and just say Illusionist, and then but it's weird, isn't it? Because you would have thought, for me,
if there's a Bender and Avatar of it, you could have an Illusionist of it.
Yeah, that's very, very, very true. But maybe I think as well, maybe Warrior. But there's something, I don't know why. Maybe that's just less flavor, more the cards that come with it. But Warrior is one of those heroes that go, oh yeah, I could have a Lightning Warrior, can see that. Earth Warrior, can see that. You know, do you know what I mean? Draconic Warrior, we're gonna get that. But somehow they just make them all feel like, do you know what I mean?
I think Warrior's kind of deceptive, because they're already very one note, where they're all around the weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like hard then sometimes, I think.
Whenever you would give a talent to a warrior, wouldn't it be a Runeblade, basically? Because it's that warrior,
jazz
so
him up.
he has a stick, and you give him an element, so it basically is a warrior that has some wizardy stuff attached, and it becomes a Runeblade.
Thank you, Bartosz. No, you're right. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm right. No, no, it's just an interesting thought process. That was all. But overall, I think it's very vague. I also know this topic's pretty stupid, right? Because there's a lot of amazing classes, amazing talents. I'm just sort of flexing on Runeblades.
I think it's fun.
It's my one and only topic I know I'm going to throw in. Hopefully, so
there's been six Runeblades. Does also go to show your point.
They do, and then every one of them don't feel boring. Every single one of them. Vincent is the only one that is like the weakest one of the lot. Right, the weakest, but it's still like when you see it being played and doing its thing, it goes, that is so hard. There's no one else plays like this. It's not even close to playing like anyone else. You've got to think totally differently, and it just it's something about that class that makes me feel this class finds creative ways to just super make their heroes stand out because the word Runeblade is such a flexible, malleable thing. If that makes sense.
It's very cool.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. Although I think they did a banging job with Nu. I'm not gonna lie. I think Nu is such a absolute banger, like thought process of assassins. Even though when I first saw assassins, I was like, all right, well, it's just gonna be like this, like Arachne and Oziri is about, it's probably as wild as it gets. But then no, there you go. No, there you go. Right. I'll leave it as there. Thank you so much, guys. And for everyone else, leave a comment below if there's a topic that you want to throw out for the next episode. Jacob and Bartosz, thank you so much for your time for this pretty wild pilot episode. I'm looking forward to getting you guys back on again with different guests for each of you to sort of test it out there. So
yeah, that's great.
No, awesome. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much for having us.
Right, see you later. Bye-bye.